Ladies and gentlemen, there's a deadly silent curse that stalks your child. It's called bullying. Don't underestimate it because it could end up damaging your child, in some cases, killing your child as well. School is the most cherished period of our lives, but it turns into a nightmare for almost 32% children across the world. Much like it did for 12-year-old Kintan Saraswat, who's a student in Delhi. Kintan was a class 6 student of the Sarvodaya Bal Vidyalaya in Delhi's Shastri Nagar. He was allegedly beaten up by his seniors after he hit one of them by mistake during the lunch break. This happened on January 11th. After returning home, a crying and limping Kintan narrated the horror and the trauma to his family. The concerned parents took him to a nearby government hospital for treatment. They gave him painkillers but refused to treat him, saying specialist doctors were on leave. His parents then took him to a private doctor who prescribed some medicines. Watch this video and you will see just how much pain this little boy was in.
बहुत दर्द हो रहा है।
2 दिन रहेगा, तीसरे दिन सही हो जाएगा। कल का दिन और से ले, बस परसों सही हो जाएगा।
बहुत दर्द हो रहा है, रात में भी होता है।
The medicines clearly weren't working. Kintan's health deteriorated. Then the boy's condition worsened to a point where they had to go to the same government hospital which had refused to treat him. Unfortunately, Kintan passed away. I will say he was murdered by bullies and then by the hospital system. The Delhi government has ordered an inquiry into the boy's death, but it is washing its hands off, saying that the incident took place outside the school's premises. What's the logic there? A distraught family, meanwhile, is blaming the government and the hospital, which shooed them away in the first place, and the private doctor who prescribed medicines. The parents are also fuming at the school for not initiating any kind of action against those who beat up their child.
कब की घटना है और आप लोगों ने स्कूल को कब अप्रोच किया था और पता चला कि कौन लड़के थे जिन्होंने पिटाई की?
सर 11 तारीख की घटना है ये। मेरा बच्चा हर रोज की तरह 11 तारीख को भी स्कूल आया था, लेकिन यहाँ पर से जब वो घर गया तो वो रोता हुआ घर पहुँचा। पूछने पर उसने बताया कि उसके सीनियर्स ने उसको मारा है। तो पेन को देखते हुए मैं
क्या कारण?
वो सर रिसेस खत्म हो गई थी तो वो टॉयलेट करके क्लास की तरफ जा रहा था तो वो बच्चों से सिर्फ टकरा गया था सर। इस बात
टकराने पे सारे सीनियर्स?
जी सर। तो सर पेन को देखते हुए मैं सर उसको लेके गया वहाँ पर हॉस्पिटल। वहाँ पर उन्होंने पेन किलर्स वगैरह दी और औरतों के लिए रेफर कर दिया, ये बोल के कि औरतों हमारा 2-3 दिन के लिए बंद है। और तो फिर मैं उसको घर ले आया। पेन किलर वगैरह देने से थोड़ी राहत मिली बच्चों को। तो वहाँ से लाने के बाद बच्चे को थोड़ा रेस्ट मिला। 15 तारीख को सर ये ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम जब उसके बढ़ी तो मैं उसको दोबारा दीपचंद बंधु लेके गया, जहाँ पर ड्रिप इलाज के दौरान बच्चे के डेथ होगी सर।
हर जगह से आप लोग निराशा हाथ लगी?
सर मैंने सरकार के भरोसे ही पहले अपना बच्चा सरकारी स्कूल में डलवाया, फिर मैंने जब इतनी तबीयत खराब हुई मैंने सरकारी अस्पताल में दिखाया और मैंने सरकारी स्कूल में डलवाया कि और इंग्लिश मीडियम में डलवाया। मैंने बच्चा यूं नहीं है कि अगर मेरे इतना कमा खा रहे हैं तो मैंने पहले अपने बच्चे के लिए ट्यूशन डलवाया, अच्छा उसको अच्छा पढ़ाया, इंग्लिश सिखाई, तब मैंने उसका इंग्लिश मीडियम में डलवाया, हिंदी में नहीं डलवाया। तो मैं
इमारतें ही सब कुछ है, इमारतें बन गई हैं, अंदर का स्ट्रक्चर
यही गलती मैंने कर दी। मैंने बाहर देखी सचिन तेंदुलकर की फोटो, कोहली की फोटो, लेकिन अंदर नहीं देखा क्या चल रहा है। मेरा बच्चा इस स्कूल में से लंगड़ी टांग से लंगड़ाता हुआ निकला है। तो खाली इमारतों पे मत जाओ।
देखने वाला नहीं था
सर, देखने वाला तो छोड़ो, मैं तो ये कह रही हूँ कि खाली मुझे ये बता दो मेरे बच्चों के साथ किया क्या है। जहाँ पे मेरे बच्चों की चोट लगी है ना, वहाँ पे सीसीटीवी कैमरा भी नहीं है। आप देखो मत, कम से कम कैमरे में तो दिखा दो क्या हुआ है।
This brings us to the very important topic of bullying, which is more widespread than you can think. We have many guidelines and rules in place for ragging and bullying in colleges and workplaces, but what about bullying in schools? Why don't we talk about it? Children don't talk about it to their parents. Parents don't talk about it to their children. Why? Schools don't talk about it either. 42% students between the ages of class 4 to 8 and 36% students from classes 9 to 12 have experienced bullying in one form or another. This is what a survey in 2019 across 9 cities had found. But how have we been dealing with this? The CBSE has issued a slew of guidelines for schools to follow. It includes a mandatory anti-ragging committee, action against those indulging in bullying, and using notice boards to warn action against bullying. Is it really making a difference? By the looks of it, no. Are schools even following these guidelines? By the looks of it, no. But the responsibility of tackling bullying does not just lie with the administration of the school. Parents, teachers, and even students themselves have a major role to play in this. The duty of a school or teaching staff is to ensure that they take complaints of bullying very seriously, offer support to the victim, and take the strictest action against perpetrators. But more importantly, I've said this before, bullying is a silent curse. The child will not talk about it. So the parent and the teacher have to be aware enough to read the signs when the child is being bullied. For parents, they're a very important pillar. The first and foremost responsibility of a parent is to acknowledge what his or her child has experienced. Don't say, choti baat hai, bhool jao. Ignore it. If you are a parent, we strongly suggest you report any incident of bullying to the school or any other relevant authority. It is also your duty to provide your child with professional help if he or she is experiencing bullying. My guests this evening are Rupali Kudesia, who is the principal of the American Montessori Public School, and Dr. Saranya Jaikumar, a child rights activist. Dr. Saranya Jaikumar, we've seen what has happened in Delhi, where a child is beaten up by his seniors, and beating, just by the way, is one of the most common forms of bullying, especially within schools and even outside schools. Dr. Jaikumar, why do schools not take bullying seriously? The child will not always come to you, especially a child who is being bullied, will not always go up to the principal or the teacher and say, I am being bullied. He will stay silent. And when he or she stays silent, the problem is that bullying keeps happening. It doesn't stop. It's a loop. It happens once, you keep quiet, you don't hit back, it'll happen a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time. Why do schools not take it seriously?
See, many of our schools only focus on marks, preparing children for the exams, and that is their main motive. But there are very clear guidelines given by the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights on preventing bullying, not just the regular school bullying, but also cyberbullying. They include that also. See, Shreya, we have to understand, in bullying, it's not just the victim that is affected. The child who is bullying, his life is also going to be affected. This child does not know what he's going to go through when he's going to get caught, when such instances happen, when such deaths happen. This child, did he even think of the consequence before he bullied this, before a group of boys bullied this particular child? And we have to also understand that school bullying also affects the onlooker children, the children who are not bullied, not part of bullying, but just looking at this because they have a constant fear of being the next victim of being bullying. See, we have to being bullied. So we have to understand that every school must have a proper reporting system in place. That is very, very important. Do schools have the reporting system? Just putting up a poster, does it make any sense? Children are just going to walk past it. Who's going to look at it? And there is no deterrence at all. There should be a proper reporting system. Even the smallest incidents that's reported, action needs to be taken, and other children needs to be aware of what action was taken. Such a complaint was made, such an action was taken, and this is the proper system that every school must have. But you ask me how many schools have this system? I would say less than 2% in the whole of this country. Do they have a proper reporting system? Do they have a proper system where proper action is taken and the other children are confident that they will not be bullied at all hereafter? So we talk about physical bullying. There are so many other types of bullying, isn't it? Psychological bullying, children being cornered. There is politics inside, children being cornered completely in class. Nobody speaks to this child. There is a lot of times the child wants to self-harm, wants to kill himself or herself. There are suicidal thoughts. All these things also happen in bullying. So it's very important that
Okay.
schools look into these guidelines. Running a school is not just about collecting the fees, attendance, and giving homeworks and conducting exams. No, you have to follow the guidelines given by commission, by the Supreme Court, by CBSE. There
Okay.
is so much of guidelines given.
Rupali Kudesia, can schools get away by saying we can't keep an eye on every child? And how do we
No,
deal with online bullying, which is not even part of what happens in school? Because that is what a lot of schools say and get away with.
See, that's what I say.
No,
School is
let
not a
Rupali
place
please
where
come in.
only...
Rupali ji, this question was for you. Please go ahead. Rupali ji, could you hear my question or should I repeat myself?
Hello.
You'll have
Was
to
that
unmute
question
yourself.
for me or for Rupali?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no, Dr. Saranya, that was for Rupali ji.
Okay. See, I'll go one step further. Just now, ma'am has quoted a very vital point that yes, reporting is very, very important, but somehow the parents always dissuade the children, or when the child reports all these incidences back home, the child is very much discouraged and very much, given evasive solution. Okay, if this child is troubling you, you change the route or you avoid this child. Okay, go from the other route, or that kind of confrontation sites are avoided, and this is how the parents guide. But little they realize that this is not the solution. They have to be participating very actively with the children, and they should encourage that, okay, if you are facing this particular problem, we are together in this, and they should empower the child. And also, the problem does not end here only at the reporting. The follow-up sessions also need to be taken very, very proactively. So once the incidents happen, after that, they should be constantly inquiring. They should be constantly getting involved with the children, what is happening in their lives. And of course, back in school, the same system should follow. That yes, reporting has been done, and they of course, proper guidelines are issued by CBSE. We all know what is to
But
be done.
Rupali ji,
But after
Rupali
that,
ji, can I interrupt you here and ask you this?
yes.
Can I interrupt you and ask you this? Point is, you're saying that parents are equally to blame. A, the first thing they'll tell a child if they say the child, that if the child tells them they are being bullied, is ignore it. Agar wo pareshan karta hai, take another route.
Ignore it.
Don't go
Yes.
anywhere near the person. I understand that. They ignore it. So the parent is at fault as well. But I want to ask you, what about schools? For example, in the case of what has happened with in Delhi, the child was beaten up by seniors to an extent where he ended up losing his life. Now, are you telling me that this is the first time that these students would have beaten up a junior student? No.
Not at all.
What is the
Not
school
at all.
doing? Was the school sleeping? Why did they not identify bullies? I mean, these are children who you see every day. A teacher knows what a child is capable of. A teacher knows in his or her class who the bully is.
Of course, and at the very inception of this, because obviously these children might not have done it for the very first time. They might have troubled the other children as well, but somehow their actions were overlooked and no action was taken against them, which is why they've gone to the extent that, a little collision and which happened inadvertently, but yet they were so aggressive that they couldn't take it and they had beaten the child to this extent. And also, I mean, I just heard the lady was talking about, the parent was talking about the CCTV camera and other thing. Besides that, how come the children were given so much time where they were unattended, and for so long they indulged in this kind of activity, and there was no supervision? Wherever they were, there was no teacher, no sir, I mean, nobody inside who could stop them. Because I know in my school, we have, during the break, during the dispersal time, we have teachers on duty, we have the support staff on duty, and they are quite
Exactly.
vigilant. So this is something very, very shocking for me, that such an incident has happened, and for this long
Okay.
the children were
Okay.
engaged in
It's
this
Dr. Rupali,
activity.
this is not just, this is a cautionary tale. This is a cautionary tale for all schools across this country and all parents across this country. Please, parents and teachers and principals, learn to recognize signs of bullying. The child will display those signs, will suddenly go silent, will keep
Yes.
quiet, will withdraw into himself or herself, will not want to go to school. These are telltale signs. Learn to recognize them. And if your child comes to you and says a kid has beaten him up or threatened him or tried to corner him, please hear the child patiently, report the matter to school, and do not give him or her advice like ignore it. That's the worst you can do to your child. We'll leave it there for the moment. Rupali Kudesia, thank you very much for joining us. Dr. Saranya Jaikumar, thank you very much for joining us as well.
Thank you.